Any super close calls for you guys on any of your approaches, or any time that you were disarming anything? Did you guys have anything bad happen?
Yeah, it was a fire support base Barry. This was after Cambodia. It was, in May of June of 1970, we had the Cambodian incursion. President Nixon authorized us to go into Cambodia for 2 months and go into the sanctuary zones and destroy all the weapons, ammunition, and all the infrastructure that the North Vietnamese had in Cambodia. Because we were turning the war over to the Vietnamese. It was called the Vietnamization Program. So when the Cambodian incursion was over, it was a rapid withdrawal of American troops out of Cambodia. And so all the ammunition was just slung low by under helicopters and dropped off at the fire support bases on the Vietnam side of the border. And in fire support base Barry, what happened one night is a flare. They launched a flare, landed just outside of the wire where the ammunition was that had been dropped off, and detonated all that ammunition and kicked it all over the fire support base. They had to withdraw to a small section of the fire support base with all the explosives going off. And so we were called in, Master Sergeant Land and I. And so we got 5 infantry guys to help us clear up all this unexploded ordnance from that. And of course, we told the infantry guys, what stuff they could pick up and put into a pile. So we had a stack of ammunition inside the fire support base, and we had another stack that was outside. And the plan was that we would then load it up in trucks, take it outside the perimeter, and then blow it up. Well, one of the piece of ammunition that was there was something relatively new. It was the XM202 flash launcher that fired the XM74 66 millimeter rockets. The XM74 has basically, the motor section is like a M72 law, 66 millimeter law, but it had a liquid incendiary called TPA. And this TPA, it was XM, it was experimental. And so we knew very little about that, because in Vietnam, they would make these ordnance. These ordnance would be rapidly put together and sent to Vietnam. And a lot of times we knew nothing about this new pieces of ordnance being introduced into Vietnam. So there's this launcher fires 4 of them, and they're used against bunkers. It's a liquid incendiary. And all of a sudden, one of those rockets a flame started to come out of one of those rockets. And Master Sergeant Land with his hands was putting mud on it, just like what we would do with white phosphorus. It was, you cover it with mud or put it in water, and that puts out the white phosphorus because it'll burn in the exposure of air. And there's a bursting tube inside it there. And then I grabbed a shovel, we covered it with mud. We treated it just like white phosphorus, and then we marked it. And then we had some other ones in that stack inside of the fire support base, and I was walking up to the stack of ammunition, and all of us, about 20 feet away, all of a sudden I see a flame come out of the stack of ammunition as one of those rockets. And before I could yell a warning to anybody, it blew up. And this liquid incendiary rocket. And initially, everything was orange, hot and orange. And I actually thought that I was dead. At that moment, I thought I was dead until I felt pain. Then when I felt pain, I knew I was alive. I grabbed my elbow and I ran, but I didn't know if I was actually running or not. I didn't even know if I had legs. And so I looked down, and I had my uniform on. I had a bush hat on. I had my uniform, and I was splattered with that liquid explosive that burning, and I looked like Wile E. Coyote that just walked into a dynamite locker that was all black and lit a match to see what was going on. And so then I turn around, and there's the infantry guys, and I helped them take shelter because only thing that detonated was that incendiary rocket, but it was still burning. The pile of ammunition was burning. So we took cover, and then there was another explosion, and things were going through the air. There was 40 millimeter HE rounds going through the air. There was all kinds of stuff going through, hand grenades and detonating. And anyway, we had to call in a medevac helicopter and to medevac the infantry guys out. So I was just slightly burned. Master Sergeant Land was just burned on his hands. We stayed, and then till the next day, then we cleaned it up, and we dug up that one that we buried in the mud, put it in we put mud in a 105 box, covered it up, put an engineer stake through it, carried it out into the jungle and blew it up. But then when I went to refresher school later on, several years later, I went to EOD refresher, and it reacts also violently with water. It should have blew up. When we put mud on it, it should have blew up, but it didn't. So the Army, the military adopted it, but by the 1980s, it was out of the military system. This stuff is really dangerous. Those rounds come in a sealed plastic bag that has nitrogen gas in it. And if you unload one of those and you see any liquid in, then you don't open that bag.
Wow. Do you know? I mean, from a strategic or tactical standpoint, what the I guess the benefit is of that weapon, like why it was integrated into the system?
Well, it was designed to be fired in. You shoot it into the enemy bunkers. That's the whole thing. It's kind of like a flamethrower, but you can launch it.
Wow.
And but in Delta, I got to actually fire some in Delta, go to the range and shoot some off. So
yeah,
before
was
they were
it
discontinued.
when you actually got to shoot it? Was it is it or was it an impressive weapon when you actually fired it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty devastating. It serves its purpose, but it was, I think it was too hazardous. I don't know what the shelf life would be on that with that, but it was just too dangerous of a weapon.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like unstable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious I'm glad that you were not hurt anywhere nearly as bad as it sounds like you could have been from that happening. Could you put a percentage on all of the kind of calls that you went on in those first few months or better part of a year in Vietnam?
I actually spent 11. Yeah, I spent 11 months in Vietnam. And I went on 380 EOD incidents in that 11 months.
Wow. So over one a day on average. Were they all typically ones where you would blow them in place, or were there ever kind of the Mission Impossible style having to disarm something where it has to stay in place and you have to deal with it?
Yeah, that was that was in Cambodia at Fire Support Base Camelot, for example. First Cav wanted to put a fire support base into this one area in Cambodia. It was a clearing. So they called in an airstrike to just pre-strike the area. And then they came in and they set up the fire support base. They put up the 105 guns and stuff. And then they saw that there was 3 dud bombs within the fire support base. One of them was one of the dud bombs was about 20 feet from a 105 gun emplacement. So we flew in. So Sergeant Fearnow and myself flew in, and we were actually met when a helicopter landed. The First Cav's assistant division commander, General Schoemaker, actually came up to our helicopter, shook our hands, and told us that we were the most important people there. And then had a colonel lead us to where the bombs were. The one bomb had gone in really deep and detonated really deep and didn't cause a crater. It caused what we call a camouflage. So the bomb detonated deep in the ground, and it did do a crater, but it didn't burst the surface. So it's like a cavity in there. And the danger of that is if anybody was walking over it and it caved in and they would fall into that cavity, there's probably a lot of poisonous, noxious gases in there that they would succumb, probably kill them.
Yeah.
But that was one of the bombs that they were worried about. The other one was laying horizontal on the ground, and the other one went down really deep and curved back around and came up, and the nose was sticking out of the ground. So, and we had to take care of those 2 bombs that were in the fire support base where all the guns and stuff were set up. So we could not blow them in place. They were Mark 82 500-pound bombs. The bombs were nose fused 904 fuses, impact fuses. The fuses were sheared off on impact, so they were no problem. But both bombs had tail fuses, M905 tail fuses, which is a impact inertia type fuse. It has a free floating detonator. So once bomb hits the ground, the free floating detonator hits the primer and the bomb detonates. And so the bombs were armed. There's a little window you can look in and see that it's red. And so Sergeant First Class Fearnow took one bomb and I took the other bomb, and we defused the bombs by hand. We screwed the fuses out of the bomb. So that was my first big bomb to defuse. And each turn of the fuse, I was wondering, if it would just detonate. And then I got it out, and he got his out, and we took our fuses out into the jungle and blew the fuses up. And then they brought in a helicopter and slung loaded the bombs out of there.
Wow.
So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm curious from a mentality standpoint. Obviously, the thoughts going through your head with every turn or rotation that this thing might go off and your life evaporates, in an instant. Uh-huh. Is there a mental process that you walk through to kind of work or walk through that, or how do you get yourself to a place where you can do that calmly?
Well, yeah, the training. I always rely on the training. So the training is really good in the EOD school, and of course, then once you get to the field, you're constantly learning from the senior NCOs that have maybe done multiple tours already in Vietnam, and so you learn from them. I just felt confident. I knew what the bomb was. I knew what the fuse was. I knew how it worked. The insides of it, what it would look like, the middle picture, Now, if that was a 905 fuse, if it was a 906, it could have been in a different story. The 906, its firing pin is spring loaded, so what we call that a cock striker. And usually, when a cock striker fails to detonate, it's because maybe there's a piece of metal shaving that's in there and it's binding up. It's wanting to go, but that metal shaving is keeping it from going all the way and hitting the primer. Now, that metal shaving the slightest movement could be just all it needs for it to go, or it's just bound up so hard that you could beat it with a sledgehammer and it won't go. But when you get fuses that have cock strikers in them, that's a little more dangerous.
Yeah. So it sounds like your knowledge of what you were disarming, coupled with the training, made it a lot easier for you to stay calm and work your way through it.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
The training was really good.
I do have a note about a 7-man EOD team that supported 1st Cav, and you guys were tasked with securing and destroying, the largest weapons and ammo cache in the Vietnam War. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, 1st Cav found it. It was a helicopter, part of a pink team. And he was flying over the jungle. And one of the purposes of a pink team is to actually draw fire from the ground, purposely to draw fire. And as soon as they draw fire, they have WP, like rockets or hand grenades and stuff with WP smoke. They would mark the area, and then the gunships, the Cobras, would then come in and attack the thing. But he was flying low over the jungle trying to draw fire, and then he actually saw these stacks of ammunition through the trees. So he reported that. And then I think it was Charlie Company, 2nd of the 12th, 1st Cav, that combat assaulted in it and recovered Rock Island East, which turned out to be the largest enemy weapons cache in the Vietnam War. There was over 328 tons estimated of weapons and ammunition at this cache site. Everything from 122 millimeter rocket launchers to all sorts of weapons, anti-aircraft weapons. The strange thing was there was stacks of 85 millimeter fixed ammunition there. And we had not really seen the use of 85 millimeter ammunition in Vietnam. It's artillery ammunition. It's used by the Soviet D-44 85 millimeter field gun. It's also used by the Soviet T-34 tank, uses that. Now, we had not seen any use of this in South Vietnam at that time. And so it was speculated that they were putting in the ammunition for a future offense in South Vietnam. And so we blew up all that 85 millimeter ammunition. So after they backhauled all the weapons out, and they also, for some reason, backhauled all the 12.7 millimeter ammunition to repurpose it. And so we blew up about 74 roughly tons of weapons and ammunition. We used 288 cases of C4 to blow it up.
Is that all daisy chained together, or how do you use that amount?
Yeah, we had to lace this composition C4, the M112 1.25 pound C4 blocks. They have adhesive tape to them. We laced the cache sites. We had to restack the cache sites because they took stuff off the cache site, so we had to reorganize the stacks of ammunition. It was down a jungle trail, and lace the explosives over it. And then we would connect everything with dual detonating cord lines. And we would bury the detonating cord lines because we didn't want anybody, when we started to withdraw security off the site, we didn't want the enemy to come in, find a detonating cord lead and cut it. So we set this thing all up, got it ready to go. So on the day that we were going to set the blast off, there was just two of us on the ground, two EOD guys, Master Sergeant Land and myself were on the ground. And then we had a squad of Echo Recon, 2nd of the 12th, that was our security element. So everything was all set up to blow. So we had 10 priming systems. Either one of the priming systems could set the whole thing off with 10 minutes of time on there. So we had M60 fuse igniters. So Master Sergeant Land and I, when we got ready to go, we had a clearing here that 2 helicopters in position. So when it came ready to pull, so we pulled our shots. We run to the helicopter to get on the lead helicopter. And this captain on the radio was talking on the radio. He yells to us, "Cut the fuse, cut the fuse, cut the fuse." 3 times he yelled it. So we run back out where the fuses are. We don't know what's going on, why there's a need to cut the fuses. So we take our crimpers out, we cut the fuses. We go back to the helicopter and he tells us to light it, to relight it. So we go back out. We have no fuse igniters. So all we got is our C ration matches. So we get our knives out, we split the time fuse, put the head of one match in the time fuse, and then light a match, and then light inside of there. And then, of course, it spits back, and then we can light. Usually, if you're quick enough, you can actually light another. When it spits back, you can light another fuse off from that. So we are relighting these fuses, and we got less time than our 10 minutes now because we just went in and cut fuses. And so while we're lighting these things, we had 8 charges around the perimeter that we had set up with C4 blocks that would go off at different times from 2 minutes to 10 minutes. That these blocks would go off to keep the enemy from coming in and trying to to cut our fuses. So as we're lighting this, our scare charges are going off. I know that people on the helicopter crews don't know anything about these charges. And so I think they think we're getting mortared. And you look at the helicopters, we lighten it, you can see that they want to get they want to leave. So anyway, we light the thing, get into the lead helicopter, and then we can't take off. We're too overloaded. So the door gunner taps me on the shoulder, says, "You're going to have to get off." And he tapped another guy, one of our security guys, and both of us get off the helicopter. We were told to go back, get on the rear helicopter. So we get off and we go to the rear helicopter. They can't lift off. So they drop off 2 people. Now the helicopters are taking off without us. There's 4 of us on the ground. So I don't want to be there when this thing goes. So I'm going to cut the fuses again. But there was another helicopter that was in orbit, and he came down, picked us up, and we got out of there before it detonated.
How much time did you have from the time you were picked up until it actually detonated?
I have no idea.
Not very long.
We were probably, I would say, I took pictures of it blowing up. I had my camera with me, so I did take pictures of it, and that's on the internet now. I would say we were probably 5 miles away when it blew up. We got 5 miles away. And
did you calculate what the safe blast distance is for that? Like how far you had to be away at a minimum?
No, I don't know what the safe blast distance was. But I actually, either a week or 2 later, I flew over that area in a helicopter, and I could see the devastation that it did cause in the jungle.
Wow, man.
So that was Rock Island East. That was the largest enemy weapons ammunition cache destroyed in the Vietnam War. The second largest was a place called the City. The City was a building. I didn't go on the City. No, I didn't go on the city. The city was a build-up area that the North Vietnamese had. They had schools, medical hospital, they had motor pool, and ammunition storage area there. So I didn't go on the city. Third largest was Warehouse Hill, and I was on Warehouse Hill. And Warehouse Hill was it was all underground. They had dug trenches and they had dug into a ridge uh, and had ammunition buried underground. So there was four of us EOD on Warehouse Hill.